225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome to GBN Tonight with me, Martin Daubney. It's been an absolutely incredible day of commemorations of the 80th anniversary of victory in Europe. And GB News had full coverage. The red arrows fly over, the highlight, of course. But don't look away, because the events are still ongoing, especially in Northern Ireland.
Yes, I'm in Kilkeel in the foot of the Mourns. Rehearsals have just finished. Crowds are starting to come in, and within the next half hour, this area will be flooded with bands, dancers and dignitaries. It all ends tonight at about 9:30 with a 21-gun salute and a fireworks display.
And Doogie Beatty, before the end of the show, I want to see you dancing, my old son, because elsewhere, a pint of good news. Heineken's raising a glass to Britain's pubs with a £40 million boost and 1,000 new jobs. I'll be joined by the firm behind this epic investment. Yeah, let's all raise a glass to what's been a resplendent day. Britain at its very, very best. The pomp, the pageantry. I did 3 hours at Buckingham Palace. The sun shone down, finally. What an epic day of coming together as a nation, the royal family, veterans. It was absolutely magnificent. What did you think of today? What did you get up to? Let us know the usual way. Get in touch, gbnews.com/you'll say. We've got a cracking show ahead. But first, here's your headlines, and it's Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you, and good evening. The top stories. The royal family watched a fly past from the Buckingham Palace balcony to mark the start of 4 days of celebrations for the 80th anniversary of VE Day. Thousands gathered in front of the palace and on the Mall as the Red Arrows and other RAF planes flew over. The King and Queen were joined by the Prince and Princess of Wales, their 3 children and other senior royals. More than 1,300 military personnel were involved in the procession led by the Household Cavalry and the King's Troop of the Royal Horse Artillery. Actor Timothy Spall recited an excerpt of Winston Churchill's 1945 victory speech, and a tea party took place with the King and Queen, joined by veterans. Sir Keir Starmer was greeted with applause from guests as he joined the VE Day Street party in Downing Street. The Prime Minister, joined by his wife, Lady Starmer, walked out of Number 10 holding a plate of cakes, which he then handed out to some of the guests. The Home Secretary has described terror raids in which 8 men were arrested as one of the biggest counter-terrorism operations in recent years. Reports say the arrest came just hours before a suspected attack was set to be launched. 5 men, including 4 Iranian nationals, were arrested at locations across England on Saturday, while the Metropolitan Police confirmed a further 3 Iranian men were arrested as part of a separate operation. Yvette Cooper says the government is supporting the relevant security agencies in the ongoing investigations. A 14-year-old boy who died after a fire at an industrial estate was loved by all who met him, his family says. 14 children arrested on suspicion of manslaughter have been released on bail after Leighton Carr was killed in a fire in Gateshead. The fire was extinguished and police said Leighton's body was located inside the building. 11 boys and 3 girls aged between 11 and 14 have been released on bail. Jury selection for musician Sean Diddy Combs' sex trafficking trial has begun in New York today. Prosecutors and the defence aim to screen up to 150 people before opening statements are given on the 12th of May. Diddy faces charges of sex trafficking and prostitution that allege he coerced women into prolonged sexual activities he called freak-offs. He's denied all the charges against him and rejected a plea deal. And Trent Alexander-Arnold has announced that he will be leaving Liverpool Football Club at the end of the season. In a statement, the England defender said it was the hardest decision he'd ever made, but he said he wants to push himself professionally and personally. The 26-year-old, who's been at the club since he was 6, is out of contract on the 30th of June and is expected to join Real Madrid. Those are the latest headlines for now. More news from me in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Tatiana. Good evening and welcome to GBN Tonight with me, Martin Daubney. Well, today, it must be said, has been an absolutely spectacular day across the country, marking the 80th anniversary of victory in Europe. The GB News has led the coverage with our breakfast programme at Buckingham Palace, kicking it off at 6 a.m. And the commemorative events were started by actor Timothy Spall, who read out some of the words of Sir Winston Churchill's 1945 victory speech.
That in the long years to come, not only will the people of this island, but of the world, wherever the bird of freedom chirps in human hearts, look back to what we have done and they will say, do not despair. Do not yield to violence.
Do not despair. Those were the words from the Prime Minister at the time, Winston Churchill, repeated 80 years on by the actor Timothy Spall. Now, the procession today began and the royals made their way to their seats, positioned next to those legendary veterans of Britain's finest generation. The King and Queen were joined by the Prince and Princess of Wales, who were accompanied by Prince George, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis. Charles and Camilla led the royal party, sitting in the shadow of the Queen Victoria Memorial, with Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer and the leader of His Majesty's opposition, Kemi Badenoch, behind them. The day did start bright, but got a bit chilly, so much so that the Queen needed a blanket on her lap to keep her warm. Got to say, I was down there for 3 hours. It did get a bit parky. Now, Prince Louis didn't allow the weather to get the better of him, attempting to steal the show by teasing or mimicking his older brother George, flicking his hair and sticking out his tongue. Something of a trademark signature move of his. Look at it, beautiful stuff. But nothing could be taken away from the King, who saluted the procession in a brilliant tribute to troops, producing one of the images of the day. And the royals then made their way to Buckingham Palace balcony, of course, for what else? The momentous sight of the Red Arrows flyover. always a soul-stirring sight and sound. And we had the iconic images of the royals, 3 generations of them, enjoying the fly past from the royal balcony, just as the royal family did back then in 1945. A beacon of continuity, a reassuring presence in times of change, reminding the nation of its enduring traditions and shared history. Now, the boys of the Prince and Princess of Wales seem to enjoy the RAF planes the most, trying to get, struggling for the best view. And later on, a tea party was hosted by the King and the Queen, with veterans invited inside Buckingham Palace. And Prince George also made a surprise appearance inside. The celebrations weren't just in the capital, they were all over this fine nation. Look at that, Emily Carver there dancing. That's magnificent stuff. And GB News was there to witness every single sight and sound. We had husband and wife, Patrick Christys and Emily Carver in Melton Mowbray, of course, the home of the pork pie. And there was some more dancing in Llangollen Town Hall, Wrexham, where Sophie Reaper was soaking up the action. Meanwhile, Captain Tom Harwood was all aboard HMS Belfast, which marked the day with a gun salute in central London. Absolutely magnificent that was too. And just down the road was Adam Cherry on Downing Street, where the Prime Minister hosted an impromptu tea party, serving veterans Victoria sponge cake, Scotch eggs and pork pies. Now, Tony Maguire got his best party hat on in Augustus, Scotland, and special mentions to Ben Leo, who was down on the mall from the wee hours of the morning, interacting with GB News viewers and Royal and VE Day fans, freezing his whatsits off. And meanwhile, Cameron Walker, who talked us through the day's events in impeccable detail, put in a superb shift. Well, what a day to soak up and what a day to reflect back upon. And joining me now to discuss this is Alexander Larman, the royal historian and a writer for The Spectator. Alexander, welcome to the show. A simply magnificent day. I was outside, privileged to be outside Buckingham Palace, soaking it all up. Veterans were there, some of them now frail in old age, but unbowed in spirit. The royals looking on. A magnificent day. What was your take?
Oh, I thought it was absolutely splendid, Martin. I thought from start to finish, it was a day we could really be proud of, because so often being British feels like we've got, the last place in life. It feels like we're being trod on. It feels like we're not, punching above our weight anymore. But today, it's one of those times that I think we really come together as a nation as well. And we really do see, looking back on what happened 80 years ago, looking back on the sacrifices done by so many, it's just the way in which that everyone from, the humblest person in the land to the king and queen and their family, it really felt like we were all celebrating as one. And you can't help but be stirred by that. And you can't help feel a sense of earned patriotic splendour about the whole thing.
Yeah, and Alexander, I was joined by the son of a World War II veteran who helped to liberate Belsen, landed on the beaches of Normandy on D-Day, fought his way across continental Europe, lost 15 of his pals, and his jacket was actually on the table. That jacket had been inside Belsen on that day. His father barely spoke of experiences throughout his life until his latter years. And Alexander, those vignettes today, those personal stories came flooding out, bringing humanity to it, bringing that pure, historic collective that we all need to remember the individual and personal sacrifice for the spirit of a nation at war, Britain vanquishing the Nazis from Europe.
Well, I think it's one of those times that we look at what happened in World War II, and it's one of the very few instances in this nation's history that it really was a straightforward battle of good against evil. And what was so powerful about hearing Timothy Spall repeat those wonderful words of Churchill is that in him, we had a Prime Minister you could look up to and we could be proud of. And I'm afraid that Keir Starmer and his Scotch eggs is not going to be the next Winston Churchill anytime soon. But all belittlement of him aside, one thing you can say is that today has been one of those days I think people will look back on it and say, we should be so proud of not just what this country has achieved historically, but of the fact that we can still pull together and we can still have this shared sense of national pride. And I think we look to the royal family at times like this to be the figureheads and to be the inspiration. And of course, Prince Louis was once again offering a moment of slightly irreverent light relief amongst all the seriousness of the pageantry, which I think a lot of people, myself included, very much enjoyed.
Alexander Lorman, I think you're absolutely right. It was so amazing to see Princes Louis and George there as the next generation, passing the baton, that continuity that we all need to pull together. Alexander Lorman, royal historian and writer for The Spectator, thank you so much for joining us on this historic day. And to reflect on today's events, I'm also delighted to be joined in the studio by the military historian and defence analyst, Chris Newton. Chris, welcome to the show on this amazing day. What was your main takeaway today? I was struck by young and old coming together, putting politics to one side for the day, and just celebrating what it means to be the very, very best of British.
Good evening. I agree with you, and I agree with Alex as well. It was splendid. It was magnificent. It was a day of unity. It was a day in which we largely set our division, our politics to one side, and we reflected on us as a country, us in terms of our national identity, and also our past. And we discussed our past in a sober, reflective way, and also with pride as well. So this was a really good day for our nation. The Royals provided that those figures, the figures of unity. And I think this was a massive relief from the usual divisions of politics and the arguments of everyday life.
And because, Chris Newton, so many of our reflections now upon our past are cloaked in shame or the need to self-flagellate for what happens in war. We didn't have that today. Today wasn't about ignoring the bad parts. It was celebrating what brings us together and looking to the future. It was so amazing, I felt, to see so many children there today joining in, remembering our greatest generation.
It's great to see the cadets marching. It's great to see the interest of the young generation. I teach in a university, and it's good to see sort of younger people take an interest in military history and those kinds of things. And it was a day to pass on the knowledge to the young as well, and a time to reflect on the older generation and the wartime generation, and to look at what they achieved. Reflect on the fact that we still need that wisdom. I lost my nan in January, so this is quite personal to me, this VE Day, and we are losing that wisdom, and in the past people have belittled the voting preferences, say, of the older generation, and we just need to remember that the older generation's been through a lot. They have the experience of wartime and the Cold War as well, and that needs to be passed through to our generation and to the younger generation now.
And Chris, do you think today was more about remembering the past? In a sense, it felt to me like a nation in political upheaval recently, the winds of change perhaps upon us, a day to reclaim the patriotic spirit.
Yes, I mean, it's really great to see all the Union flags everywhere. It's great to see people cheering and people having pride in our country, and it's good to actually reflect and look at our military history as well, which again, working in academia is not always emphasised these days, but it's good to have the pinpoint and the focus on our military past, to see our troops and to see the aircraft as well today, and it brings that connection between civil society and the military, because again there is a distance there, given that our armed forces are so small now. Not many people have contact with the armed forces. Days like this, when we have processions like we had today, that brings civilians and the military together, and it's an opportunity for civilians to learn about what the military did in the past, but also what they are doing now, and reflecting about the future as well, and the various threats. We have to remember that freedom. These people, these servicemen. In the and civilians and women as well, they contributed to our freedom, and they enabled us to enjoy our freedom today. But we need to understand that needs to be maintained. It's not something that we wake up and just take for granted. It needs to be carried forward into the future.
Chris Newton, magnificently put. Thank you very much for joining us. Of course, we'll come back to you later in the show. Brilliant stuff. Now, for the break, asylum seekers are making an eye-watering £500 a day, a week, beg your pardon, by working for delivery services, all the while being housed in taxpayer-funded home office hotels, being paid for, of course, by you, the mug, the British taxpayer. Plus, also, President Donald Trump has ordered the reopening of the infamous Alcatraz prison. I'll be speaking with an Alcatraz expert about what this means, and that's next.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast every day from 6 a.m.
Can you find love in your twilight years? That's what we're asking this morning. Broadcaster Ryan Mark Parsons and former Conservative MP Anne Widdecombe join us now. Good to see you both this morning. Anne, let's start with you. Is 70 too old to date, do you think?
70 isn't too old for anything. Everybody ages at different rates, both mentally, physically, in the sorts of things they like. When you say to me, is 80 too late to, is 70, well, we might even say 80. It's too late to find love. The answer is just look around you. Lots of people have. But let me say right away, no, that's not an invitation. I've absolutely no ambitions in that area at all.
Ryan Mark, what do you make of it? Do we need to stop putting a bar on ageing and dating?
No, I don't think we should. I think once you get to such an old age, you really should be looking for love internally. I mean, you should self-love. I just don't see the point at 70 years old to be searching for love at that point. I think you should go on a holiday somewhere. I think you should find love with the sunshine and a cocktail, perhaps, instead of looking for a man or a woman. I think at what point do you decide that, you know, love is not going to come round knocking on your door? And I think probably at the age of 70, that is when you should decide it's time to give up. I'm 24, living in London. I know how incredibly hard it is to find love. I don't know how anyone who has wrinkles and grey hair at the age of 70, over someone like me, could perhaps find love. I just don't think it's possible. I think it's a nice idea, but I think it's not feasible. And also, I don't think there's any point at that age.
The People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GBN Tonight with me, Martin Daubry. Now, asylum seekers who cross the Channel illegally or living in taxpayer-funded hotels are now working under the radar as takeaway delivery drivers. And guess what? They're earning up to £500 a week, completely tax-free, of course. Now that legally they are banned from working, and yet many are riding for Deliveroo, Just Eat and Uber Eats using rented-out accounts. Now that means that somebody else is the face of the account and they freelance it out to somebody who's illegal. And much of this cash is sent back home to their country, wherever that may be, to repay the criminal gangs who smuggled them in. Well, is it just yet more proof that we become soft-touch Britain? Well, joining me now to discuss this is Max Winthrop, who's the former chair of the Law Society's Employment Law Committee and also the employment solicitor at Sintons LLP. Max, welcome to the show. Listen, anybody with half a brain and eyes in their head can see this at their local asylum hotel. I see it practically every day. Deliveroo bikes outside hotels. They're either getting food delivered, which is the problem, or they're doing the delivery themselves, which is an even bigger problem. This is happening in plain sight today. What on earth can we do to stop it?
Well, I think the key here is that word illegally working. Now, what's surprising about this is, in one sense, what are they doing working at all? Because if these are migrants pending the right to reside here, then they shouldn't be working. That's what the law says at the moment. Now, there's an unfortunate, I think it's almost like the vested interest in they can't be working. Well, if they can't be working, then where's the tax going to be paid from? The taxman won't tax illegal workers. And it kind of sort of almost enforces the rather dodgy, shady black economy aspects of working. And we're seeing this in particular in fast food delivery at the moment. In different generations, perhaps we'd have seen it in different areas, lump labouring in building, on building sites, casual waiting. But for some reason, the fast food delivery really seems to be hit by this. And I emphasise again that point, illegal. They've got no right to work. Supposing they're underpaid, supposing they're overpaid, they've got no rights. Those that are exploiting that system, equally, it kind of suits them that they've got a sort of rather jelly-like mass of people that are prepared to work, as you put it, under the radar.
Now, Max, to me, this is a very easy thing to solve. I speak to Uber drivers all the time. They have to have their facial recognition scanned before they do jobs to make sure it's the real person. Why on earth can't these apps, which have full photo ID, just employ that? This can be sorted at a sweep.
Well, yes, you'd think it would, because those workers, if we had that type of recognition, there would be, one would think, in this day and age, very easy to link those that get jobs with their right to be here. It's common practice, I would have thought, nowadays, when you're employing someone, that you go through a series of checks to ensure that they've got the right to work. So a few years ago, I changed my job. I had to produce my passport, for example. Now, that raises a question. Why aren't the employers going through that particular process here? Are they turning a blind eye to it? Or is it actually perhaps that there are unscrupulous employers who don't necessarily want legit workers?
Well, I think actually you've answered the question there. Perhaps, as we saw prior to Brexit, there's just simply an addiction to cheap foreign labour. Max Winthrop, pleasure to have you on the show tonight. Thank you very, very much for joining us. Now, a Deliveroo spokesman told GB News this. We're currently rolling out additional device ID checks for all riders and will continue to strengthen our controls to prevent misuse of our platform. And meanwhile, an Uber Eats spokesman told this to GB News. If a courier engages in any illegal or unsafe behaviour, we take a range of actions, including permanently deactivating the courier's access to the app. Now, moving on, moments ago, President Donald Trump addressed reports that he is considering reopening the notorious Alcatraz prison amidst a crackdown on law and order and looks like illegal immigration into the United States. Take a listen.
Nobody's ever escaped from Alcatraz and just represented something strong having to do with law and order. We need law and order in this country. And so we're going to look at it. Some of the people up here are going to be working very hard on that, and we had a little conversation. I think it's going to be very interesting. We'll see if we can bring it back in large form, add a lot. But I think it represents something. Right now it's a big hulk that's sitting there rusting and rotting.
A big rusting hulk. Could it be brought back? Well, earlier Trump took to Truth Social to hint at plans to reopen and expand Alcatraz as a maximum security prison, vowing to crack down on violent criminals and illegal migrants. And the president has called the prison a symbol of law, order and justice. But is that really the case? Well, joining me now is the historian of Alcatraz, John Martini. John, welcome to the show. Alcatraz, a byword for unforgivable, unforgiving. Law and order. It's inescapable. It's a fortress. Should it be brought back? And could it be brought back?
Well, I think the should is a question for someone else to answer. I can kind of address the could it be brought back. And the simplest way to put it, it would be a daunting task. It was shut down 63 years ago because of incredible operational costs for running an island in the middle of San Francisco Bay. Cost about 3 times as much to keep a convict out there as any mainland prison, but also because the island was physically decaying and needed millions and millions of dollars of rehabilitation. That was 60 years ago. The island it would have to almost be torn down and rebuilt in modern materials to make it anyway operational. But even then, it would be a replica of a 1912 prison, which is when it was built. So it's nowhere near any modern codes for incarcerating people. I couldn't even speculate what the cost would be.
But perhaps no mountain is too high for this government, this regime, if it wants to send out the message that we will punish criminals. No more namby-pamby soft soaping. Alcatraz is totemic of that relentless law and order strategy. Perhaps that's what Trump is driving at.
Well, that's why it was established in the 1930s. It was a response to the 1920s crime wave in America, a lot of it brought on by Prohibition and then the Depression. It was intentionally meant to be a response of this is how America handles what they used to call the irredeemable and incorrigible types. But remember, the place was falling apart, and it isn't as if they didn't need a prison like this anymore. It's just it got so bad during the administration of President John F. Kennedy, it was decided to build a new modern state-of-the-art penitentiary to take Alcatraz's place. And they did, a place called Marion, Illinois. It's still there, but it got dubbed immediately the new Alcatraz because the name was so pervasive. Marion, Illinois was closed, and there's an even tougher, more restrictive prison now in the wilds of Colorado. And that one is Florence, Colorado, and it's state-of-the-art, maximum security, and it's been dubbed Alcatraz of the Rockies. So the name persists.
OK, John Martini, fascinating stuff. Historian of Alcatraz, thank you for joining us tonight on GBN Tonight. Now, this evening at 9 p.m. is Patrick Christie Tonight, and the star of that show joins me now. Patrick, you've been in Melton Mowbray all today, sinking your fangs into pork pie. What's on the show tonight? What's on your menu?
I've eaten 4 pork pies, so yeah, I'm going to probably roll over later on. I have also brought some more back for my live studio audience, and I've got a live studio audience full of military veterans and military heroes just to help mark the day. I am going to be asking them whether or not they think that this version of Britain is worth fighting for. You've just covered a lot there about illegal immigration. We're going to be hearing about a councillor now in Burnley that stood on a ticket of male and female segregation, Sharia style, and won. So we're going to be talking about all of that. We've also, of course, got Labour's response. Lucy Powell, I think, just letting the cat out the bag about how Labour genuinely feels about grooming gangs. So we're going to be talking about all of that. Also, Prince Harry, you know, he's one of their own, isn't he, a veteran? Well, you know, he's thrown his family under the bus yet again, so I'll be interested to see what a room full of actual veterans do think about Prince Harry, because I think they do tend to be quite split on all of that. We're having a look at the state of our armed forces and absolutely everything as well. It's been a glorious day today. Thank you very much. I've been listening to your show on the drive back, Martin. It's great stuff. The GB News output all day has been magnificent. The people of Melton Mowbray were in fine fettle. I'm in a great mood. I can't wait for 9 to 11 p.m.
Like I said, Patrick Christie tonight with veterans and added pork pie. A meaty menu, Patrick Christie's from 9 p.m. Superb stuff. Thank you. Now up next, the VE Day celebrations continue. We'll be going live to our reporter Doogie Beattie, who was at a military parade in Kilkeel, Northern Ireland. I'm determined to get this fella dancing. Do not go anywhere.
Hello there and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, the weather's not going to be changing drastically through the next few days. It's going to stay dry for most of us. It will gradually turn warmer towards the end of the week, but there'll still be a bit of a breeze in the south. So we've got this large area of high pressure dominating the UK at the moment. Any showers that we saw through Monday clearing away as we go through this evening. And I think, generally speaking, it's going to be a dry night across the vast majority of the UK. That cloud melting away to leave generally clear skies for many places overnight tonight. Just a chance the odd spot of rain perhaps across the far northeast of Scotland and the odd shower in eastern counties of England. Under those clear skies, temperatures really falling away, so a widespread frost in the countryside, though most towns and cities staying just above freezing. Tuesday then begins on a fairly sunny note for the vast majority of the UK, but down across the southeast of England a bit more in the way of cloud once again, although not as cloudy as it was on Monday. Still one or two showers perhaps on the east coast of England, but generally speaking most of Wales, northern England, Northern Ireland and much of Scotland starting the day on a bright and sunny note, and any mist and fog quickly clearing by mid-morning. A bit more in the way of cloud though still across the far north east and northwest of Scotland, just bringing the odd spit and spot of rain to a few places. Through the day then we might just see one or two showers just clipping into parts of East Anglia and Lincolnshire, but not as many as there were on Monday, and many places staying dry. The best of the sunshine out towards Wales, Western England, Scotland and Northern Ireland, and here we'll see the highest temperatures too, so 17s and 18s a bit more widespread on Tuesday and feeling quite warm in the light winds, still quite breezy in the east. For Wednesday, perhaps a slightly cloudier day, but generally dry for most of us. A lot of sunshine as well, breaking through that cloud, but some high-level clouds, so maybe a little bit hazier than it has been of late. And temperatures once again, well, into the mid to high teens for many of us. And whilst it will be quite cloudy to end the week, there will be some warm sunshine at times, and temperatures may well reach 20 degrees by Friday.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Beautiful, rousing music, and welcome back to GBN Tonight with me, Martin Daubney. Now, celebrations are continuing across the UK, including, of course, in Northern Ireland. It's a special night in Kilkeel as the town marks 80 years since victory in Europe Day with a spectacular street tattoo. Crowds have gathered for a packed evening of marching bands, Highland dancers, wartime swing music and military pageantry. But of course, the star of the show is our man Doogie Beattie, who's been there living, soaking up the atmosphere all day long. Doogie, earlier on in the show, I saw those magnificent dancers behind you getting really into the spirit. What's happening now?
Well, things are just about to get underway here. If we get the camera to swing around there and just have a look, you can see those Highland dancers just about to start. The band playing the national anthem. Everybody getting to their feet now, Martin. The crowds here are 4 and 5 deep. You can see the barriers round in this street. And those Highland dancers are all carrying balloons with them, 80 balloons to mark the 80th year of victory in Europe. And earlier on, I managed to speak to a veteran, a 100-year-old veteran. I don't think we have that clip just ready yet. John Goff. he was involved in Market Garden and the Irish Guards, and I had asked him some questions about where he was when they knew that the end was coming of the war. He said he was in Germany, and it was very emotional actually, and I felt very, very privileged to speak to that man because he was so dignified in his responses that was there. And really in amongst these crowds here at the minute is a lot of youngsters who are here to see exactly what's going on. What is your name?
Mine, Rachel Horschel.
Rachel, why are you here?
Just enjoy the day.
And do you know what VEA is about?
Kind of.
What about you, sir? What about you? Why are you here?
I'm here to respect all the soldiers that gave freedom in the Second World War, and it's a great night in Kilkeel. Great to see it all, and I think it's a great end to times when we won't see veterans again in the future.
Do you think it's important, really important?
It is. It's important to remember the sacrifice of our soldiers in the Second World War, definitely.
Well, Martin, you can just see they are reading the declaration at the moment, but if you just look down this crowd, you can see the whole way right down this street. This is absolutely packed. The Union Jack in the middle, members of the Young Orange Order actually carrying this flag from the 1940s, and behind we have more and more military-style bands, we have pipe bands, and then at the end of tonight there will be a 21-gun salute, a beacon lit, and a fireworks display to mark the start of these celebrations, which of course in Northern Ireland Thursday is really the day that VE Day is celebrated.
DGBT, it's just so wonderful to see the nations coming together in Northern Ireland. Sophie Reaper in Wales earlier on, Tony Maguire in Scotland. It just goes to show you, we hear a lot about the fact the United Kingdom is falling apart. DGBT, days like today show that bond lives on. DGBT, magnificent coverage throughout the day. I almost got you dancing earlier on. I won't embarrass you to do it again, to unleash your inner Michael Flatley. You fancy a dabble, mate?
No, definitely not. If you want the viewers to turn off, that's the best thing to do. But I admire your persistence.
A man can only ask. DGBT, it's been a pleasure all day, as ever. Thank you very, very, very much indeed. Well, let's come back to the studio now. And I'm still with my presenter friend and military historian, Chris Newton. Chris, a point there I raised with DGBT, the importance of the bond, the historic bond, the bond of brothers, the band of brothers, the bond of war with Wales, with Ireland, Scotland, Northern Ireland. That is a huge part of today's commemorations.
Yeah, the theme of today is unity, and it's very important to reflect on Northern Ireland and its importance during the war. Its geographical location, its an outpost to the Atlantic. It's an important staging post for transportation to the British mainland. It was an important base for aircraft and ships. It was an important industrial centre as well, which is why the Germans bombed Belfast. So Northern Ireland is, and of course the contribution of the Northern Irish troops as well, and indeed there were Irish volunteers as well. So this day is very important and it carries a message that all parts of the United Kingdom contributed, and it was great to see again the young people there where your reporter was, and it was great as well to hear the national anthem and for everybody in all parts of the United Kingdom to remember and to take pride in this important historical moment.
Chris, can I ask you a pertinent question about young people's attitudes towards patriotism, towards the flag? You teach young people at universities. We hear a lot about this generation almost growing to hate Britain, the contempt. We hear a lot about wokery in academia, the reteaching about history through the prism of negativity, Winston Churchill being a racist, the empire being a force for evil. Is that exaggerated? We saw today a huge display of enthusiasm from young people towards the flag, towards our heritage. Where's the truth?
I mean, there is more of an emphasis in university curriculums of a more critical approach to British and Western history. So in terms of what they're being taught, there is more of a negative version of our history. But I come across young people, many of whom are very patriotic, very interested in military history, and I have also taught military officers in the past, and indeed many of my students now are members of militaries, British and indeed militaries of many countries, and those people are extremely impressive young people, extremely proud of what they do, they care immensely about the country, and those are the people who really do impress me in terms of their attitude and in terms of their patriotism.
And just to remind people who are tuning in now, we have live pictures on our screen from Kilkeel in Northern Ireland. The procession there just getting underway. There's going to be some dancing, there's going to be some pipes, there's a ceremony going on there as we speak. Marvellous sights, truly marvellous sights. Remembering Northern Ireland's contribution, much respected contribution to that war effort 80 years ago, and of course before and after. Chris Newton, can I get back to you about academia? Do we need to look at changing the approach to the curriculum in Britain, perhaps? Nigel Farage is talking about this in the wake of the recent council elections. If Reform was to get into power, they were talking about changing the curriculum so we don't teach this pervasive, acidic take on British heritage. Donald Trump has just done the same in America, teaching our history through the prism of positivity. Do you think it's worthwhile to think about kicking the woke, kicking the poison out of British academia, teaching our children to be proud to be British?
I think, as I said earlier, I think there is a growing move towards the more critical schools of thought in history and in the way it's taught in schools.
But are we teaching young people to disrespect Britain? Is there a pervasive negative opinion that comes from academia, right from junior school right the way to university?
I think that's increasingly so, and I think that's very much the case when you have the emphasis on the negative aspects of British history, the empire, the slave trade, and so forth. That obviously I'm not saying don't teach the negative elements, but I don't think there's enough balance of the more positive elements. So for example, our role in abolishing the slave trade, the Royal Navy's role in the context of the Second World War. Yes, there are controversial elements of the Second World War, strategic bombing and so forth, but you also need to teach the valour and sacrifice of what our troops needs to do. So I do think there needs to be much more of a balance in both schools and universities in terms of what they teach, because I think they're getting more of a one-sided, simplistic narrative, and they don't really explore the complexities of history.
Chris, quickly if we could, a lot of people say that this is deliberate. It's specific, the debasing of the flag, calling Winston Churchill racist, deliberately and specifically targeting the flag, our greatest ever heroes. It's all part of a plan. It's all part of a plan of a left-wing, communist-driven academia, if you like, to teach young people to hate our country. Am I being paranoid? Is that a conspiracy theory, or is that happening?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the theories in which these ideas are coming from, they are so anti-Western. They believe in a different interpretation of the world and our history. So you are right in that sense. It is a simplistic, sort of overly negative interpretation of history, which is why we need balance in our universities. The universities are very heavily favoured towards the left, and increasingly the radical left.
How many conservatives work in academia these days? A fraction,
It's a fraction. I mean, there has been research by Policy Exchange and other think tanks as well into this, and the number of conservative academics in academia now is a very small fraction.
Well, there we go.
There's increasingly a radical element in the universities, which which shows you where the direction's going.
Well, I wonder if Donald Trump has got the right idea. I wonder if it is time to wage war on woke in our educational establishments. Chris Newton, a delight to have on the show tonight. Just to remind you there, pictures from Kilkeel in Northern Ireland as the magnificent pageantry continues. Now next, a pint of good news, because Heineken, the lager company, is raising a glass to Britain's pubs with a magnificent £40 million boost and an extra 1,000 new jobs. I'll drink to that, and that's next.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Despite some dry and sunny weather across parts of the UK, it's a different story across parts of Europe, with heavy showers and thunderstorms for many of us, particularly across parts of Spain, southern parts of France and parts of Italy too, seeing some heavy thunderstorms throughout Tuesday afternoon. Southern parts of Greece and Turkey probably holding on to the best of the sunshine through Tuesday afternoon. Highs here around 26 degrees, but there will be some sunshine on offer for many of us over the next couple of days, and highs in Tenerife around 24 or 25 degrees.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
please bring us up to date.
Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GBN Tonight with me, Martin Daubney. Now, here's a story that you want to raise a glass to, because Heineken is pumping 40 million quid into British boozers, reopening and refurbishing hundreds of pubs across the United Kingdom. Now, around 1,000 new jobs have been created, with more than 600 boozers getting a facelift. And crucially, many long-term shuttered locals are set to reopen their doors. Heineken says that well-loved locals are growth engines for communities. activities, and frankly, I will raise a glass to that. Well, who better to discuss this with than Mick Howard, who's the operations director at Heineken and Star Pubs. Mick, it's a bitter irony that there's a Dutch company that's trying to save the great British booze, but hats off to you. We need all the help we can get, especially on VE Day. We are all allies.
Yeah, thanks for that, Martin. And yeah, we look forward to VE Day and the pubs raising a pint to the heroes during the war. But yeah, Heineken recognises the value of the Great British Pub. You know, it's intrinsic to our society, and we recognise that investing in the Great British Pub, supporting local communities, creating jobs, giving people a reason to visit their pub and join with friends and family, you know, is a great thing to keep the pub tradition going.
And Mick, it's just a great shot in the arm for the British pub industry. Really has been on its knees ever since COVID lockdowns.
Yeah, well, we've sort of invested 40 million this year. We invested a similar amount last year. You know, post-COVID times were tough, but we do find that the British consumer wants to go out. If you give them a reason to visit the pub, they'll come and do it. So one of the things we do with our investments, Martin, is make sure we're putting great facilities in. It's not just about, you know, that group of blokes going in after work for a pint. I mean, they're still important, but you know, what the pubs can do for the communities during the daytime, it opens it up to mothers and toddler groups, to pensioners, food offers, you know, clubs in the evening, as well as going out for a great time at the weekend to meet friends, family, and watch the football.
Mick Howard, you're making me drool. You're saying everything that's correct. You're absolutely right that pubs are if we're all bricks, then pubs are the mortar that keeps us together. Pubs aren't just about boozing. They're an integral part of our communities, none more so than at the moment. Wish the very, very best of British to you. Thank you very, very much. Mick Howard there, the operations director at Heineken and Star Pubs. Thank you very, very much indeed. Well, up next is State of the Nation. I'm joined by Alex. Alex, it's been a massive day. What's on your menu?
Oh, we've got a stellar show tonight for the audience. Listen, everyone would have remembered those bombshell comments from Lucy Powell over the weekend when she was talking about the Grooming Gang documentary with Tim Montgomery. Well, I've got Tim in the studio with us for the State of the Nation tonight. We're going to unpick all those comments. He's going to come under a lot of fire because we've got a panel of Tories, Reformers, everyone Labour in the room as well. And then we're going to talk about that Reform landslide election because there's been the Reform have policies. And of course we had Andrea Jenkins talking about the tents. We're going to be pressing Reform on that. So it's going to be a really all-encompassing show. And of course we can't have a show without the VE Day stuff today. We're going to have Major Shearer in with us. He's going to be talking about the state of our armed forces too. It's going to be great.
Beautiful stuff. What do you make of this idea of, I mean, Lee Anderson said this a long time ago, let's stick illegal immigrants in tents. Let's put them in fields, pick potatoes. Andrea Jenkins coming out, been criticised by the Liberal left, as you'd imagine, but it's gone down quite well with Reform voters.
Well, exactly. They're playing to their crowd, right? But I think if I had it my way, they wouldn't be here in the first place, Martin. I'd have them deported. There wouldn't have to be this need for tents. But we use tents all over the world. I mean, the UN put refugees in tents. France does it. Italy does it. Why can't we do it? Because we make this is the honey jar of Europe for illegal migrants. That's why they risk their lives to get here. So we've got to stop it somehow.
Okay, Alex Armstrong, you're speaking a great pitch. You're not Prime Minister just yet, but you are on State of the Nation next. That's coming after the show. Now, thank you so much for tuning in today. I've had a fantastic time down at Buckingham Palace. Who'd have thought me, a coal miner from Nottingham, presenting at Buckingham Palace on VE Day 80th. What a privilege. Up next, State of the Nation. But first, though, here's your weather with Tom Morgan.
Good stuff, man. Lovely stuff.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, the weather's not going to be changing drastically through the next few days. It's going to stay dry for most of us. It will gradually turn warmer towards the end of the week, but there'll still be a bit of a breeze in the south. So we've got this large area of high pressure dominating the UK at the moment. Any showers that we saw through Monday clearing away as we go through this evening. And I think, generally speaking, it's going to be a dry night across the vast majority of the UK. That cloud melting away to leave generally clear skies for many places overnight tonight. Just a chance the odd spot of rain perhaps across the far northeast of Scotland and the odd shower in eastern counties of England. Under those clear skies, temperatures really falling away, so a widespread frost in the countryside, though most towns and cities staying just above freezing. Tuesday then begins on a fairly sunny note for the vast majority of the UK, but down across the southeast of England a bit more in the way of cloud once again, although not as cloudy as it was on Monday. Still one or two showers perhaps on the east coast of England, but generally speaking most of Wales, northern England, Northern Ireland and much of Scotland starting the day on a bright and sunny note, and any mist and fog quickly clearing by mid-morning. A bit more in the way of cloud though still across the far north east and northwest of Scotland, just bringing the odd spit and spot of rain to a few places. Through the day then we might just see one or two showers just clipping into parts of East Anglia and Lincolnshire, but not as many as there were on Monday, and many places staying dry. The best of the sunshine out towards Wales, Western England, Scotland and Northern Ireland, and here we'll see the highest temperatures too, so 17s and 18s a bit more widespread on Tuesday, and feeling quite warm in the light winds, still quite breezy in the east. For Wednesday, perhaps a slightly cloudier day, but generally dry for most of us. A lot of sunshine as well, breaking through that cloud, but some high-level clouds, so maybe a little bit hazier than it has been of late. And temperatures once again, well, into the mid to high teens for many of us. And whilst it will be quite cloudy to end the week, there will be some warm sunshine at times, and temperatures may well reach 20 degrees by Friday.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could be the next big winner on the road in this brand new Alnag Baron 560 motorhome, courtesy of Marquis Leisure. Imagine the fun you could have in this luxurious home from home worth over £67,000. We'll also give you £5,000 in tax-free cash to make your next getaway a great one. And it could be all yours. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hello, good evening. It is VE Day. I have my Union Jack here. Happy VE Day to everybody watching at home. I'm Alex Armstrong, standing in for the venerable Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg. What an honour. On State of the Nation tonight, Reform UK has dominated the political headlines this week after a turquoise tsunami swept the local elections on Thursday. But with expectations high, how can their councillors and new councillors actually begin to make our lives better? And Commons leader Lucy Powell caused a storm over the weekend after slapping down a question from Tim Montgomery about grooming gangs, as she called them a dog whistle. She's apologised, the Prime Minister has accepted it, but it isn't it the victims who really deserve an apology. Tim Montgomery is going to join me for all of that and more. And Britain celebrates VE Day 80 years on with parades, pageantry and parties up and down the nation. And we mark this wonderful day we defeated fascism and led Europe to victory and freedom. But 8 decades on, how are Britain's armed forces faring? And are we properly prepared to fight back against modern adversaries? Plus, we'll take a look back at the highlights of the day's fantastic celebrations. State of the Nation starts now. Yes, I'll be joined by my intellectual panel tonight, former Conservative MP and Minister Sir John Redwood, and political commentator Dominic Moffat, as well as Reform Councillor Jamie McIver. As ever, let me know what you think. gbnews.com/your say. But first of all, it's your news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Alex, thank you. The top stories. The royal family watched a fly past from the Buckingham Palace balcony, to mark the start of 4 days of celebrations for the 80th anniversary of VE Day. Thousands gathered in front of the palace and on the Mall as the Red Arrows and other RAF planes flew over. The King and Queen were joined by the Prince and Princess of Wales, their 3 children and other senior royals. More than 1,300 military personnel were involved in the procession, led by the Household Cavalry and the King's Troop of the Royal Horse Artillery. Actor Timothy Spall recited an excerpt of Winston Churchill's 1945 victory speech, and a tea party has taken place with the King and Queen, joined by veterans. Sir Keir Starmer was greeted with applause from guests as he joined the VE Day street party in Downing Street. The Prime Minister, joined by his wife Lady Starmer, walked out of Number 10 holding a plate of cakes, which he then handed out to some of the guests. The Home Secretary has described terror raids in which 8 men were arrested as one of the biggest counter-terrorism operations in recent years. Reports say the arrests came just hours before a suspected attack was set to be launched. 5 men, including 4 Iranian nationals, were arrested at locations across England on Saturday, while the Metropolitan Police confirmed a further 3 Iranian men were arrested as part of a separate operation. Yvette Cooper says the government is supporting the relevant security agencies in the ongoing investigations. Now, a 14-year-old boy who died after a fire at an industrial estate was loved by all who met him, his family says. 14 children arrested on suspicion of manslaughter have been released on bail after Leighton Carr was killed in a fire in Gateshead. The fire was extinguished and police said Leighton's body was located inside the building. 11 boys and 3 girls aged between 11 and 14 have been released on bail pending further inquiries. Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel's plan to capture all of the Gaza Strip will be intensive, with troops to remain there for an unspecified length of time. The Israeli Prime Minister says IDF forces will not launch raids in an abandoned territory, but the opposite. The plan includes distributing aid, though supplies will not be let in yet. The newly approved defensive plan would move Gaza's civilian population southward and keep humanitarian aid from falling into Hamas's hands. And Trent Alexander-Arnold has announced that he will leave Liverpool Football Club at the end of the season. In a statement, the England defender said it was the hardest decision he'd ever made, but he says he wants to push himself professionally and personally. The 26-year-old, who's been at the club since he was 6, is out of contract on the 30th of June and is expected to join Real Madrid. Those are the latest headlines. For now, more from me in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Last week, the political ground experienced an earthquake. Reform UK stormed the local elections, delivering Sir Keir Starmer the worst defeat of any incoming Prime Minister in nearly 50 years. And the Conservative Party, well, they were gutted, weren't they? Over 600 seats lost, even in their heartlands. That marked the first time since 1889, when the modern local government system was first established, that the Conservative Party has failed to secure a majority on any council. Quite some stuff, really, isn't it? Since Thursday, though, Reform's tremendous rise has had some commentators asking what their local policy stances are, as seemingly some of their already floated policy promises have been claimed to have no authority on what they're talking about, i.e. they're talking about matters that are to do with the government, not local authorities. Well, here is what Dame Andrea Jenkyns said shortly after her election to Mayor of Greater Lincolnshire.
I say no to putting people in hotels. Tents are good enough for France, they should be good enough for here in Britain.
The leader of Reform UK, Nigel Farage, also made big promises.
We are going to be quite radical. Work from home, forget it. If you're a DEI officer, I suggest you look for another job. So things are going to be different. We can't wave magic wands. We don't pretend to, but it'll be a very different approach to local government.
So is this ambition overreach, or is it another media stitch-up? Well, joining me now is Reform UK's councillor Jamie McIver, and my panel also here today, former Conservative MP and Minister Sir John Redwood, and political commentator and Labour councillor Dominic Moffat. John, well, let's start with you. What did you make of Andrea Jenkyns' comments about illegal migrants being, it's OK for them to be put in tents, for example?
Well, she's a friend and a former colleague of mine, but I was flabbergasted. I would have thought that the Mayor would want to set out what her key promises and actions were going to be for the people that she's now representing, and instead she had a rather odd opinion about how you could actually tackle the small boats problem when it's not her responsibility, and when I can't see her managing to do such a thing.
I mean, you guess you could argue the press were asking her these questions, and if she had failed to answer them, do you think that she would have had more backlash saying, well, actually, Reform don't have a plan? Because that's often the case, isn't it? The media will ask a question and maybe not talk about the topics that she might want to talk about.
Well, I do think a new mayor has a duty to say, I'm very pleased I got elected, and the really big things I'm going to do for you guys now in return are the following. And that's what the public want to hear. And all we've heard is this rather strange opinion, which I think she won't be able to implement. And she doesn't have the powers to decide those things. It's Home Office duty. And if she tried to intrude, then she's going to waste all the time and money of the council on legal actions about something she doesn't properly control. That's not a great start.
Yeah, you know, Dominic, Labour's going to be gearing up now for a political fight. This is going to be government versus local government. If Nigel has his way, Nigel Farage has his way, he will be taking the government to court, putting injunctions in, as we heard Zia Youssef say last night. Are you a little bit worried that the government's now going to have to put these illegal migrants in hotels or hostels, as they might be deemed, in parts that are Labour seats? Is that quite a clever ploy by the Reform Party?
Absolutely not. I don't think this is a political ploy by the Reform Party. I think this is an attempt at populism. I think on the kind of the weekend where we're marking VE Day's 80th anniversary, and when we're celebrating a country that was fundamental in setting up the international treaties that we have today, it's a very disappointing sight to see Nigel Farage, man who likes to drape himself in the flag, turning his back on the statements we made as a country in 1945.
OK. Jamie, I'd like to bring you in here, Reform Councillor Jamie McIver. You've just heard from John and Dominic. What do you make of their comments?
Well, first of all, I think talking about Andrea Jenkyns, what's an absolute asset to the Reform Party. I'm absolutely delighted Andrea joined us, and she won, and a thumping victory as well. Her election was fought on local issues. That's why she won so well. And it's ironic, isn't it? Because
what's she going to do for the locality,
the Conservative Party, all they did was a nasty smear campaign against Andrea, which is why they lost so badly. And Andrea, as soon as she was elected, did a fantastic speech. And one of the things that she said, which I completely agree with, which is that people that enter this country illegally, that gets put straight into hotel rooms. Meanwhile, we have people, many, of course, on the streets of places like Lincolnshire, who are homeless in this country. So Andrea is right to say that things need to change in this country. People voted for change. That's why they vote for the Reform Party. The idea...
And will she be able to do that? Will she do it?
This is why the Conservative Party is in opposition, because the idea that because it's not in the Mayor's powers to necessarily do something, that we should just not talk about it. Don't forget, we're getting ready for a reform government led by Nigel Farage as our Prime Minister, and we're going to have a reform Mayor of Lincolnshire to ensure that these policies get dealt with at a national level, and Andrew is so the right person to do that. Which is why
she lets them down on the first big pledge. It doesn't get you off to a good start.
She's not been sworn in yet.
Yeah, I would say there's a lot more to happen here, isn't there, Dominic? And you know, a lot of talk. I mean, we've seen some Labour MPs break ranks on the ECHR in the last few days. You know, is Keir Starmer now shaking in his boots? You know, he's seen this massive turquoise wave. I mean, Labour is historic defeat for any incoming Prime Minister. You know, it's not looking good for Labour. Are they going to have to pivot to the right?
I don't think they're pivoting to the right, and I don't think that they're going to pivoting. The Prime Minister has made it very clear it's further and faster. That is a commitment to deliver the change that people voted for.
Well, I want to talk about further and faster. What does that mean?
It means delivering on the promises that were made in the general election last year that elected the largest...
So when you want to stop the small boats, that was a promise, and you've broken that massively, and that's why people are so angry.
You know, people might say, further and faster, what, more boats? More tax on pensioners, more tax on farmers. This is not what we want. This is not what we voted for, Dominic.
Further and faster means change. Change from 14 years of Tory government that left people feeling worse off, that they couldn't trust politics, they couldn't trust politicians. What this Labour government is intending to deliver, and what Keir Starmer is hoping will win a general election in 2029, is by delivering on those promises.
Right, John, listen, you're a former Conservative minister. Kemi Badenoch has suffered a severe defeat. And again, another historic part of that historic night there. The first time they've not won a council since the formation of local government in 1889. Is she toast?
No, she's not toast. I mean, she's got a first year and she's only part of the way through that. She is making changes. I'm very pleased she's reversed the policy on migration, because that was the biggest failure of that last Conservative government. Far too many legal migrants and not enough success, although they were beginning to get the numbers down of the illegals. And then I'm very pleased she's backing off the extreme net zero nonsense that government started, and this government is doubling up on an enormous cost. We don't want to lose all these industrial jobs with high energy prices.
What is it then that's not penetrating the public sphere? What is it with Kemi and her leadership style that's not quite hitting the ground running? Because, you know, frankly, at this point in time, you know, we're talking almost a year into a Labour government that's been deeply unpopular. Kemi Badenoch really should be riding that wave, and she's not. It's Nigel Farage that is.
Well, I think it's going to take a bit of time, because people are still very angry about things the Conservative government didn't do and some of the things they did do. But they're now even angrier because the Labour Party has come in and doubled or trebled up on the things that were wrong and made everything worse instead of solving any of the problems that were obvious.
But if it was a bad night for Labour, it was an even worse night for the Conservatives.
We're not disputing that.
One bright point for the Conservatives was Paul Bristow's election in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough.
Correct, yeah.
And, you know, Paul out-reformed reform in lots of places.
Did he really?
So does that mean that the Conservative Party has to shift further and further and further to the right to be successful?
Well, let me ask you this, Jamie, because this has been on everyone's lips the last few days. Is there a potential merger between Reform and the Tories incoming? There are plenty of seats. I could give you a litany of them where the difference was a matter of a handful of votes. The Tories let their vote to Reform let their vote to the Tories. There would have been a landslide night for the right.
I completely agree that there are many elections that took place on Thursday. If the Conservative Party weren't there, we would have beat Labour for sure. Reform came a very close second in many of those seats. So absolutely, if the Conservative Party actually cared about defeating socialism, they would have got out of the way and put the national interest first on that occasion. But I do not see personally any reason why any deal with the Conservative Party would be of any benefit to the Reform Party. We've just won 677 councillors. We've just elected a Member of Parliament in the 16th safest Labour seat. We've elected 2 mayors, and of course we've won 10 councils from Nottinghamshire, Northamptonshire, Nottinghamshire, Kent, across the country. And the reason why we've done that is it's quite funny watching you argue amongst yourselves. It doesn't matter if the Labour Party goes to the right, to the left, if the Conservative Party were to go to the right, to the left, the brands are broken. It's like the Titanic. If you're a cruise ship company, you wouldn't want to go and do a deal with the company that built the Titanic. panic. The brands are completely broken and public trust has gone. They won't be electable for a very long time.
OK, wow, fiery start to State of the Nation. So we're going to have this panel throughout the show, so you don't want to go anywhere. But coming up next, Commons leader Lucy Powell caused a storm over the weekend, slapping down a question on that grooming gang documentary that she called a dog whistle. She's apologised. The Prime Minister has accepted it. But isn't it the victims who really deserve an apology? I've got the man who asked those questions in that interview, Tim Montgomery. He's joining me in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point.
He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast every day from 6 a.m.
From a PETA point of view, see you guys are in the newspapers today, PETA, and it's about the definition of a rat. Have you seen this story?
Yeah, I have indeed. And, you know, rats are individuals. And of course, we want everyone to respect all animals. But one point I would like to raise is that, you know, we mention animals who are going extinct. There are over 2,000 species right now that are on the endangered list.
Well, rats
and there are
won't be one
thousands
of them.
more. Well, you know, rats are important as well, but we're here to talk about, you know, the dire wolves. And it's important to point out that we need to think about what's going to happen to these animals once they're released back into the wild, because this is really complicated.
Yes,
and we need to remember that humans don't have a good track record of our treatment of wolves. Thousands are being culled as we speak due to perceived overpopulation problems. So why are scientists trying to bring back more of these animals when their cousins are being blasted out of their homes? It doesn't make sense, and we need to focus our efforts on protecting animals that are already here.
I get that. Just to say, a rat, according to the Cambridge Dictionary, is a small rodent. The noun can mean also an unpleasant person who deceives others or is not loyal. And you guys think that's unfair to rats and you want it redesignated and redescribed. And I don't know if James Cagney would appreciate with you, you know, because I think when he was going, you dirty rat, I don't think that he was really wanting anybody kind or nice coming to him or whatever, but that's historic film.
Well, look, this is a completely friendly request, and we want to encourage everyone to respect all animals. Rats are lovely creatures, they're intelligent, and they're actually very clean. So, you know, this was a friendly request to the Oxford Dictionary, just to right a simple wrong.
OK.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to State of the Nation with me, Alex Armstrong. We've been discussing local elections and lots of you have been getting in touch with us. Claire says at least Reform will do their very best to improve their councils, unlike the others. They know their future depends on it. They couldn't possibly be any worse than Labour. Richard says, I enjoy the bits where Labour and Conservatives are arguing about who was the worst. And Helen says, Kemi is too slow. She can't get her wet Tory MPs on side. Internal infighting is still going on. I have to admit, I did rather enjoy Keir Starmer's quip in PMQs the other day when he said Robert Jenrick may still be running, which was, I think, one of his funniest moments in Parliament so far. There's been few, but there we go. Anyway, it's the topic the government just can't sweep away, isn't it? On Saturday, Labour Cabinet Minister Lucy Powell became embroiled in a fresh grooming gang row. Her comments sent shockwaves through the media, with calls from both the public and victims for her to resign.
I don't know whether you saw the documentary on Channel 4 about rape gangs over
No,
this.
we want to blow that little trumpet now, do we? Yeah, okay.
There was a real issue.
Let's get that dog whistle out, shall we? Yeah.
Yes, Powell made those comments on BBC Radio 4's Any Questions when asked by journalist Tim Montgomery about them. Lucy Powell has since apologised and was defended by her colleagues on the Labour rounds yesterday. Here's Health Secretary Wes Streeting speaking to GB News' Camilla Tominey yesterday morning.
She's rightly apologised for what she said on Radio 4 on Friday night and said, like, you know, she's made a genuine mistake. She's genuinely sorry. She shouldn't have said what she said to Tim Montgomery. That wasn't the right response to fair and reasonable points he was making. Well, because she's human and we make mistakes. And I've been in those debate formats before where sometimes in the heat of debate you say something that you didn't mean or it comes across in a way that you didn't intend and you really wish you'd rather not have said it.
Wes Streeting was very adamant that her apology had reached Tim Montgomery and the Prime Minister has accepted her remorse. But who is it here that really needs an apology? Well, I'm very grateful to say that Tim Montgomery himself, along with my panel, former Conservative MP and Minister Sir John Redwood, and I beg your pardon, it is the full title, I'm correct, and political commentator Dominic Moffat are here. Tim, maybe talk us through the moments that this took to happen, because you were asking her about the Grooming Gang documentary, the Channel 4 Grooming Gang documentary that dropped just a couple of days prior. How did it play out on your end? Because we were only hearing it, of course, here.
Well, the context was Reform's policy of getting rid of diversity officers in local councils. And both, actually, the Liberal Democrat representative on the panel and representative, this was a peripheral policy. And what I was trying to do by talking about the grooming, we should call them raping gangs, scandal, was to say it's not really the number of diversity officers that you have that is the problem. It's the fact that, yeah, racial justice is incredibly important.
Right.
But it sort of is taking on a sort of prominence in the public sector beyond all balance, and other legitimate issues are sort of crowded out. So the ethos means, and I thought the grooming gangs was the perfect illustration of it, that people will put sensitivity towards community relations above even the protection of children. Now, that was an extreme sort of manifestation of that culture, but we see it in schools, we see it in council policies on languages. So many illustrations of putting that first. But I didn't get a chance to say all that.
Sure.
Because I did, on a programme like GBNews, you actually listened to what your panel said.
We tried our best, yeah, we did.
Before I'd really even begun to make that point, there was no partisanship until then. I was just trying to explain the policy. Lucy Powell went on the attack. And I've learned two main things about it. First of all, lots of people on the left came to my defence over the weekend, not hers. I think there are younger people on the left in the Labour Party who are outraged about what some of the politicians in their party are saying. And I can't say too much, but I've been contacted by two Labour cabinet ministers who have said, I was right, Lucy was wrong, and there is a debate in the Labour Party about how the party still hasn't taken this seriously and needs to. I don't think it's a coincidence that there is a big Muslim vote in Lucy Powell's seat, I'm afraid.
So Trevor Phillips also said the same thing. He did say they were pandering to votes in the community.
There's a lot of electoral politics here.
Did you accept Powell's apology? Do you think it was vacuous or was it genuine?
Well, it was vacuous. I think if I had said, to call anyone a racist, which is basically what she did, it's a big charge. I hope and believe I'm not. I'm a Christian. I believe we're all made in the image of God, and I think to treat people differently because of the colour of their skin is a sin as much as anything. It's interesting, though, that, for example, Wes Streeting and Peter Kyle, who didn't make the error, have reached out to me and said, I hope you're OK, I'm sorry. Lucy hasn't run me.
Interesting.
But much more importantly, I wonder if she's contacted the survivors, because they are the people she really insulted. I agree. Not me. I'm big enough and ugly enough to cope. But you know, every time when you've been through something as horrible as the grooming scandals, the only thing I think that could possibly make sense is that it couldn't happen again, that the authorities have learned something. But when you hear a Labour cabinet minister use exactly the same kind of language that suffocated debate in the past, you think they seem to have learned nothing.
Well, listen, Tim, some will ask whether you were using this opportunity to, as part of a political football with that topic. How do you respond to those claims?
Well, the question was raised by other people about why we were getting rid of why Reform was getting rid of diversity officers, and I wanted to explain the context. Sometimes, though, what I would say is people often say we don't want to make this a party political football because they know they're wrong on the issue.
Yeah, sure.
Things that often are sort of not in politics are neglected issues. And I think the worst thing we could do would not talk about the failure to still enact the recommendations of the inquiry into grooming. And there are 50 towns in Britain where grooming took place. 50.
Yeah.
Labour promised investigations and inquiries into those local areas, and they haven't happened. That's what really...
Well, I want to dig into this with our panel, but I'm going to read this statement out here. An Oldham survivor told GB News, "I really don't know who they think they are. Labour go from bad to worse. They are so disrespectful and dismissive of us and our trauma." Lucy Powell has also apologised on social media, saying, "In the heart of the discussion on any questions, I would like to clarify that I regard issues of child exploitation and grooming with the utmost seriousness. I'm sorry if this was unclear. I was challenging the political point scoring around it, not the issue itself. As a constituency MP, I've dealt with horrendous cases. This government is acting to get to the truth and deliver justice." Dominic, I want to go to you.
Just very briefly.
Very briefly, go on.
Don't take my word for it. I ask you, listen to the debate.
Absolutely.
Who began the political point scoring? I don't think that's a genuine apology.
Yes, Dominic, I'll start with you. Do you accept Lucy Powell's apology on this? Do you think it's vacuous? As many, you saw the victim's statement there. Do you think she should resign over this?
Well, look, here as a commentator, I think it's very important that if an apology has not landed with one of the people who's meant to have received the apology, and you say a victim has said that, then clearly that apology has not worked. It is not sufficient because it has not been received. It's not been heard. I think it's a significant political issue for the government that victims of grooming and that people concerned by this, as we all should be, are saying it's not being dealt with properly. I think the Home Office have made some very sensible steps forward in terms of giving local authorities the power and funding to convene their own inquiries. We've had national statutory inquiries. The J report has made significant recommendations a long time ago now, and they were not enacted by a Conservative government for a long time, and there are things that have not been enacted now by the Labour government.
Well, in fact, as far as we might know, they have rescinded on 2 of the recommendations of the inquiry. One recommendation, compensation for victims. The second one was to extend the compensation for victims. So, you know, John, I'll come to you on this, because we would argue the Tories didn't do anything with this matter. Labour may be taking steps backwards. The Tories didn't do anything at all. Can the public trust any of the 2 established parties to deliver justice for the victims?
Well, we need to press on and get to the bottom of this. The Tories did have inquiries. They didn't touch the right places, and so then they have now said they need an additional one. And they did tell officials to work on a compensation scheme. And I now understand this Labour government has decided to veto that on the grounds that they haven't got the money.
Yes.
But the Lucy Powell comment was just completely unacceptable. This is a very raw nerve. This is a disgrace.
Having been a minister, should she resign for that?
Well, I think she should. She should certainly do a lot better than she's done so far and make a proper apology to everyone who's taken it the wrong way, because... it just simply wasn't the right thing to say, and the apology wasn't a proper apology. She's now saying that the government she's part of is doing all the right things. It's not. 50 cities or towns, and we might get inquiries in 5 if we're really lucky, but they seem to have been withdrawing even the 5. They're not going to be proper inquiries. You can't bring anybody before them and insist on them answering questions. So what is the point of it? We need a hard-hitting inquiry that gets quickly to the truth, and we want prosecutions. Things have gone horribly wrong. People in authority ignored all this, or did think that this was a dog whistle issue which they didn't need to bother about, when this was vital to the lives of these young people. And now we're told that people many years later who've suffered in this dreadful way from gang rapes and from drug taking that was forced upon them and so forth, are not even going to get any compensation. Well, I'm sorry, it's not good enough.
I think that'll be a very difficult pill for a lot of people to swallow, particularly as there's a lot of spending on other things that people may find ideological. Tim Montgomery, thank you so much for coming in today. Really appreciate it, and thank you to the panel that you'll be staying with me. But moving on, as Britain celebrates VE Day, 80 years on, with parades, pageantry and parties up and down the nation to mark this day that we defeated fascism and led Europe to victory and freedom. But 8 decades on, how are Britain's armed forces faring? And are we properly prepared to fight back against modern adversaries? We'll be telling you more about that after the break.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews travel destinations forecast.
Despite some dry and sunny weather across parts of the UK, it's a different story across parts of Europe, with heavy showers and thunderstorms for many of us, particularly across parts of Spain, southern parts of France and parts of Italy too, seeing some heavy thunderstorms throughout Tuesday afternoon. Southern parts of Greece and Turkey probably holding on to the best of the sunshine through Tuesday afternoon. Highs here around 26 degrees, but there will be some sunshine on offer for many of us over the next couple of days, and highs in Tenerife around 24 or 25 degrees.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews travel destinations forecast.
Hello there and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, the weather's not going to be changing drastically through the next few days. It's going to stay dry for most of us. It will gradually turn warmer towards the end of the week, but there'll still be a bit of a breeze in the south. So we've got this large area of high pressure dominating the UK at the moment. Any showers that we saw through Monday clearing away as we go through this evening. And I think, generally speaking, it's going to be a dry night across the vast majority of the UK. That cloud melting away to leave generally clear skies for many places overnight tonight. Just a chance the odd spot of rain perhaps across the far northeast of Scotland and the odd shower in eastern counties of England. Under those clear skies, temperatures really falling away, so a widespread frost in the countryside, though most towns and cities staying just above freezing. Tuesday then begins on a fairly sunny note for the vast majority of the UK, but down across the southeast of England a bit more in the way of cloud once again, although not as cloudy as it was on Monday. Still 1 or 2 showers perhaps on the east coast of England, but generally speaking most of Wales, northern England, Northern Ireland and much of Scotland starting the day on a bright and sunny note, and any mist and fog quickly clearing by mid-morning. A bit more in the way of cloud though still across the far north, east and northwest of Scotland, just bringing the odd spit and spot of rain to a few places. Through the day then we might just see 1 or 2 showers just clipping into parts of East Anglia and Lincolnshire, but not as many as there were on Monday, and many places staying dry. The best of the sunshine out towards Wales, Western England, Scotland and Northern Ireland, and here we'll see the highest temperatures too, so 17s and 18s a bit more widespread on Tuesday and feeling quite warm in the light winds, still quite breezy in the east. For Wednesday, perhaps a slightly cloudier day, but generally dry for most of us. A lot of sunshine as well, breaking through that cloud, but some high-level clouds, so maybe a little bit hazier than it has been of late. And temperatures once again, well, into the mid to high teens for many of us. And whilst it will be quite cloudy to end the week, there will be some warm sunshine at times, and temperatures may well reach 20 degrees by Friday.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back to State of the Nation with me, Alex Armstrong. Today, we mark the astonishing 80th anniversary of Victory in Europe Day, a time for us all to reflect and remember the bravery of British heroes that put their freedom above and their liberty ahead of ours. But it also allows us to reflect on the state of our own affairs in the United Kingdom. With a war still raging on the edge of Europe, I'm reflecting on the state of our military and our veterans on this occasion. The British Army is now the smallest it has ever been since the Napoleonic era, with troop numbers dipping below 73,000 and still falling. By contrast, the Ministry of Defence spends significant time insisting this is a leaner, more agile force, which is a polite, bureaucratic, nonsense way of saying we can't afford more boots on the ground. We want Britain to keep being the Britannia that rules the waves. We want to keep this proud period of our history alive and honour the memory of those we lost. And as Churchill said in his victory speech, "Advance Britannia, long live the cause of freedom, God save the King." How can we embody the words of Churchill 80 years later? Well, joining me now to discuss the state of our armed forces is former British Army spokesman, Major Mike Shearer. Mike, such a pleasure to have you back on, a fan favourite of the show. You have seen our military change dramatically. You've been in service in many, many countries from the Cold War onwards. Has it got better or worse for armed service personnel?
It's got much worse, much, much worse, Alex. Apart from what you quoted Winston Churchill saying a moment ago, he also said, "Do not yield to violence and tyranny." Well, I'm afraid, the way I'm looking at it, we are yielding to these things. You're right, we don't even have an army. An army in normal military parlance constitutes 100,000 men at arms. So we're more of a home defence force right now. An overblown dad's army, if you like.
It's quite shocking. Obviously, the MOD has said they want a leaner and meaner force. Have they got a point to be made there? Because we're talking about now AI in warfare, drones. Do we need to be spending our money on things like that to keep up, and less on boots on the ground, less on the old school machinery like planes even?
Look, the AI and the bots, they should be as well as, not instead of, boots on the ground. It is the old perennial cat and mouse thing with munitions versus armor. As soon as we develop an aggressive munition, we all already then are trying to work out how to defeat it. And at the end of the day, all you can require on are men in tanks and infantry's running around the battlefield with fixed bayonets, because that is what works. A drone can be defeated, I beg your pardon, by other drones. We need the men, desperately need them.
Yeah, and there's a war raging, sadly, on this 80th anniversary of VE Day. There's still war on the edges of Europe now. Are we ready to respond to a serious escalation, say, from Russia? Are our armed forces prepared for that?
No, look, we're far from it. If you look, you mentioned about my time during the Cold War. At that time, we had 155,000 soldiers in the British Army. And I spent most of my time patrolling the inner German border in my tank to keep the Russian hordes at bay, along with our NATO partners. Now, that inner German border has got a lot bigger now. It runs from the Barents Sea north of Norway. It comes through Finland, through the Baltic states, into Poland, and in the fullness of time, I suspect Ukraine as well. It is massive. And I'm afraid Keir Starmer's partnership of the willing, he isn't showing any willing. 2.5% spend of our GDP in about 2 years' time is nowhere near enough. I would say the bottom figure, the minimum figure, is 5% now. Now, I understand that government and politics is all about competing priorities, but the NHS, education, the International Development Fund, it'll mean for nothing when we're all speaking Russian.
I was just sort of talking and reflecting on VE Day again. There's so many brave men and women who put their lives on the line to defend our liberty, defend our freedom. They put theirs ahead of ours. And I guess, really, Mike, how would they see our military today? How would they feel about fighting for our armed forces? You must speak to many veterans during your time. How would they feel about serving the forces today?
The old adage, isn't it, from the First World War, I think it was the Daily Express or the Mail, one or the other, that said, we have lions led by donkeys. And I'm afraid what we first need in government is political will. Let's not forget the first order of any government is to protect the realm and the security of its citizens. It is showing precious little will currently, as I observe it. They need to lean in and take this serious.
OK, Major Mike Shearer, thank you so much for joining us on a special day today. We really appreciate you coming on. Next on State of the Nation, today we say Great Britain, we see it at its finest up and down the country as we mark that 80th year since VE Day. We'll take a look at some of the fantastic highlights and celebrations. And we'll also go live to Northern Ireland, where our reporter is looking at all of the events ongoing there as we speak. We'll be there in just a moment. See you after the break.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and he did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Yes, it's VE Day, and thousands of people have been lining the streets of London to kick off 4 days of commemorations to mark the end of the Second World War in Europe. Let's take a look at some of the highlights of the day.
This is not a victory of a party or of any class. It's a victory of the great British nation as a whole.
Beautiful, wasn't it? I walked past the cenotaph before I got here and it was just absolutely stunning. But before we go to my panel, celebrations are continuing across the UK, of course, including Northern Ireland. We've got Doogie, our Doogie Beattie. He's joining us now live from Northern Ireland. What's going on over there, Doogie?
Well, good evening. Yes, welcome to Kilkeel. Thousands of people have come into this town here to celebrate VE Day. It has been a fantastic night. We've had dancers, we have marching bands, pipe bands. At this minute in time, we've actually got the East Belfast Protestant boys in the arena. And if we just look around the crowd here, you can actually see how many people are here. They're 4 and 5 deep in the street. And even actually behind us, they're hanging from very windows, cheering on the band that's in the arena at this moment in time. And they're really getting into the occasion here. And of course, in Northern Ireland, we don't celebrate VE Day today. We do that on Thursday the 8th. But this is one of the events that's going on, and it has been so very well attended. And earlier on, I had the pleasure of talking to John Goff, who was part in Market Garden, and he told me about the friends that he had left behind, and he told me about how disturbed he was in VE Day, but he also told me how great it was this evening to come here and see these people really coming out to be appreciative of what he had done. So all this ends at about 9:30 tonight. It will end with a 21-gun salute, a fireworks display and the lighting of a beacon. But for now, it still goes on.
Shots there from Northern Ireland. I'm joined by my panel, former Conservative, not my former panel, they're still here, I promise you.
What have we done wrong?
No, you are here, I promise. Former Conservative MP and Minister Sir John Redwood and political commentator Dominic Moffat. You're looking at those beautiful pictures there from Northern Ireland. Don't the Northern Irish just do it so fantastically on days like this, John?
Well, they do indeed. It's always so moving, but it is all around the country. And it's a wonderful event because we still have some people with us who actually fought through those dreadful days and tell us how they were. And we need to treasure them all the time. They're still with us. I'm so pleased this has gone so well today.
Absolutely. And Dominic, these moments really unify the country. We've had gruelling elections, of course, that can be seen as divisive by some, but it's days like this that Britain comes together and puts aside those differences, isn't it?
It's absolutely fantastic to see, and it's great that there are events going on across the country as well, with the beacon lighting coming up later this week, and network lighting up, and I know I'll be attending mine. I think it's on Thursday.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I love days like this. I was walking down my street earlier on the way here to the studio, and I saw a lovely event. There was a band playing down the road. We had bunting everywhere. There was cakes being sold. It was just absolutely fantastic. And I think this is really what makes us British. It's this fantastic moment of coming together and putting aside those political differences perhaps and going, well, let's remember what we've sacrificed to still be this free, liberal country that we are today, John.
Absolutely right, because we value liberty, we value free speech, we value settling things by tough words and votes and sorting it out in this way, in the way this programme does so well. And we wouldn't be here if we hadn't had ancestors who decided to take that battle to the Nazis and to make sure that we could secure it for democracy again. And thank goodness they did.
Yes. Dominic, you're a bit of a younger man. Would you sign up and fight today if there had been another war, perhaps?
If they want me, they could have me, but I'm not sure I'm going to pass all the tests required. But in a very divisive decade, the last few months have seen a number of kind of great events where everyone's come together with this, and we had obviously the Jubilee, which brought people together, and I think it's a fantastic moment for everyone to recognise what what really matters after that very divisive election on Thursday.
Yeah, well, John, there's been some sort of slightly disturbing polling coming out over the last couple of years that's showing a younger generation don't appreciate democracy as much as we do, perhaps, saying that they would actually be partial to a benevolent dictator. Are we losing the messaging of things there? And this is what makes VE Day so important, in my opinion, but are we losing the long-term battle for democracy?
Well, I hope we're not, but every day those men and women of goodwill need to make the case and to explain. There's a teaching job to be done, and I think this is magnificent because this brings together multi-generations in families.
Yes.
And then the young people can say, well, why did Grandad or Great-Grandad go and do this? Well, he did it because he had to, because he must do it, because you wouldn't be here today living in this wonderful country with all these freedoms and opportunities if that had not happened.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you there. And I think one of the special things about this is our royal family's participation in VE Day. Of course, the Queen famously was out dancing with the public in her uniform, trying to stay nonchalant and not be noticed, but she was out dancing in the public doing the conga, I believe. We wouldn't see anything like that today, Dominic, of course, would we? The royal family are very well protected now, but they're still an important part of days like today, aren't they?
They absolutely are, and I think they're a very unifying group, actually, for most of the country. And there are a few figures on the periphery of the spectrum that like to flag them as not a unifying group, but actually they are for the vast majority of this country. And you're talking about knowing why people went out and fought. We had a fantastic history teacher at school. We went out to the battlefields, did the battlefields tour, and Mr. Morgan, sadly, who died a couple of years ago, said to all of us, none of you write what did they die for. They knew exactly what they had gone out there to die for, and it meant an awful lot to them.
Yes, and again, seeing the royals today, that generations of them up there, still 3 generations of kings we were talking about in the break there, John. How important is that? Of course, we had Prince Harry not that long ago making those comments, which were seen by many to be very provocative. Is there a worry that the royal family might be losing its magic over time, or do you think that there's better days to come?
I think you see the magic again today, don't you? And there are some peripheral figures in the royal family that cause noises off and fill newspapers, but we know what matters are the people who will be kings and queens and their immediate family. They perform magnificently. They are a unifying force. Here we have Labour and Conservatives saying this works, and you can see it on the streets, and long may it continue. Whereas if you have elected people, there are divisions to choose someone by election. There's a lot to be said for divisions. You need argument, you need debate. But when it's something big like this, you need a unifying figure who represents all of us, and that's what they do.
Yeah, I think this is something that crosses party lines. The royal family, despite the ups and downs of them, are that force, that main political figure in British society that can bring us all together on days like this. I mean, many people watch the King's speech at Christmas. It's a tradition for my family to sit down and listen to it. Of course, the Queen before him. Do you think the King is obviously capable, still given his health concerns, to carry that torch of a strong royal family forward, Dominic?
Absolutely, and if we look at the politics of it, Pierre Lemart and Electoral Calculus did a poll as part of the Road to 29, looking at how public opinion feels about the country. Nearly 20% had support for Nigel Farage as a representative and the Prime Minister. They were on equal footing. Only about 7% thought Kemi Badenoch was a good representative, but I'm sure that number for the King is much, much higher, and that shows that unifying feeling about that they bring.
Dominic, John, thank you both so much for joining me on this very, very special VE Day today. I have Patrick Christys on the line with his show coming up. Patrick, what have you got on your show this evening?
Well, I've got a very special live studio audience with me this evening. Hello, everybody. Yes, what better way to commemorate the 80th anniversary of VE Day than have a room full of veterans and friends and family of veterans. So, make some noise if you are a veteran. Good, yes, absolutely. So we're going to be talking about all things Britain's military history, whether or not you would fight for Britain today. Has Britain been worth fighting for? Some other news topics as well doing the rounds. Labour's response to the Grooming gang scandal and the fact that there is a bit of Burnley now that appears to be operating under Sharia law. So we're going to be talking about all of that and much, much more. Prince Harry's latest response as well to the royal family. And we're going to be playing you some highlights of the day. I've been out and about in Melton Mowbray all day, so I'm currently 5 pork pies deep. I'm hoping that wears off steadily over the course of the next couple of hours. Top panel tonight, Carol Malone, Bob Seeley, Benjamin Butterworth. I'll see you in a couple of minutes' time. Come on, then.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, the weather's not going to be changing drastically through the next few days. It's going to stay dry for most of us. It will gradually turn warmer towards the end of the week, but there'll still be a bit of a breeze in the south. So we've got this large area of high pressure dominating the UK at the moment. Any showers that we saw through Monday clearing away as we go through this evening. And I think, generally speaking, it's going to be a dry night across the vast majority of the UK. That cloud melting away to leave generally clear skies for many places overnight tonight. Just a chance the odd spot of rain perhaps across the far northeast of Scotland and the odd shower in eastern counties of England. Under those clear skies, temperatures really falling away, so a widespread frost in the countryside, though most towns and cities staying just above freezing. Tuesday then begins on a fairly sunny note for the vast majority of the UK, but down across the southeast of England a bit more in the way of cloud once again, although not as cloudy as it was on Monday. Still one or two showers perhaps on the east coast of England, but generally speaking most of Wales, northern England, Northern Ireland and much of Scotland starting the day on a bright and sunny note, and any mist and fog quickly clearing by mid-morning. A bit more in the way of cloud though still across the far north, east and northwest of Scotland, just bringing the odd spit and spot of rain to a few places. Through the day then we might just see one or two showers just clipping into parts of East Anglia and Lincolnshire, but not as many as there were on Monday, and many places staying dry. The best of the sunshine out towards Wales, Western England, Scotland and Northern Ireland, and here we'll see the highest temperatures too, so 17s and 18s a bit more widespread on Tuesday and feeling quite warm in the light winds, still quite breezy in the east.